What would you do if the city you trusted for safety was already dead, but still breathing? The road stretched endlessly beneath the pale glow of the moon, and the Carter family had been driving for hours, exhaustion creeping into their bones as the empty highway pulled them deeper into silence, further from civilization, until the headlights finally revealed a sign half-bent on its rusty pole that read "Welcome to Blackridge City, population 12,416, yet the instant they crossed into its limits, it felt as if all 12,000 souls had simply vanished, leaving behind buildings that stood like tombstones and streets that breathed nothing but dust. Michael Carter, the father, tightened his grip on the wheel while his wife, Laura, glanced nervously through the window at the silent stores, the frozen traffic lights, and the lamps that still glowed as if the power had never been cut even though no human shape walked beneath them, and in the backseat their children. Emma, aged 12, and Jake, barely 8, shifted restlessly, Emma whispering that the place felt wrong, like stepping into a photograph where time had stopped. And though Michael forced a smile to reassure them, he too felt the weight of an invisible stare pressing against the car, the sort of weight that made the air denser, the silence sharper, the shadows longer. Yet he drove deeper because the gas gauge flickered dangerously close to empty and they needed fuel, food, and rest before continuing their trip across the state. They rolled past diners with neon signs still buzzing faintly, motels with curtains drawn tight, and a police station that looked ready for service yet displayed no officers, no patrol cars, no sign of life, and the deeper they went the more unsettling the city became. Doors slightly ajar as if left in haste, store shelves stocked but untouched, hot cups of coffee on tables that had long since gone cold, a swing in a playground moving gently as if a child had just abandoned it, until Emma muttered, "Dad, it's like everyone disappeared all at once," and Laura reached back to squeeze her daughter's hand though her own fingers trembled, because she had noticed something that Michael hadn't. Every clock they passed, whether on a storefront, a church tower, or inside the glowing windows of houses, displayed the exact same time, 2:53 a.m., frozen and unmoving, a silent countdown waiting to resume. And when Michael finally pulled the car over by a gas station, he stepped out into the still air, calling out a hesitant hello, but his voice came back hollow, swallowed by the streets as though the city didn't want echoes, and Laura begged him not to stray too far, but he walked inside, his shoes crunching against scattered magazines, his nose catching the faint smell of something burnt, and when he checked behind the counter he saw the register still open with bills stacked neatly, untouched, as though the cashier had stepped away only seconds before. He hurried back outside, whispering to Laura that the pump still worked, and while he filled the tank his eyes scanned the skyline, noting the black shapes of skyscrapers looming against the moon, windows like dark eyes staring down, and then, without warning, the streetlights flickered once, twice, 3 times, before steadying again, and in that moment Michael's skin crawled because he felt certain that something had just woken up. They got back into the car, driving toward the center where maybe a hotel would give them shelter until morning. But Emma pointed out the church on the corner, its doors wide open, candles flickering inside even though no priest or congregation was there, and Jake muttered that he didn't like it, that the shadows looked like people bending in prayer, and Laura begged Michael to keep driving. Yet before they could escape the clock tower above the church began to chime, slow and heavy, its bell, tolling through the empty streets with an echo that seemed to rattle their bones, and Emma screamed, "Dad, look," because every clock in every building, every neon diner, every glowing house window began to tick again, the hands racing toward the same inevitable hour, 3 a.m., and as the final bell tolled, the silence of the city shattered. Not with voices, not with footsteps, but with the sound of hundreds of windows sliding open all at once, creaking in unison like a rehearsed performance, and from within those black frames, shapes began to emerge, not quite human yet built like them, faces hidden behind shifting smoke, outlines trembling as if unstable, shadows peeled from walls and molded into figures that leaned out to stare down at the Carter family, and though they had no eyes, no mouths, the Carters could feel their gaze like knives pressing into their skin, and then, together, they stepped out onto balconies, fire escapes, and sidewalks, moving silently as if weightless, the faceless residents of Blackridge returning to their streets, and the Carter family realized too late that the city wasn't empty at all, it had only been waiting for the clock to strike 3, because that was when the shadows came alive. The silence of the city hung like a curse, thick and unshakable, as the family ran desperately through the cracked, uneven streets, their breaths ragged and broken. The night was not just dark, it was suffocating, as though the very air pressed in on them, whispering that escape was only an illusion. Behind them, the shadows moved like living smoke, slipping across walls, pouring out of windows, and stretching through the alleys with a hunger that seemed endless. The father, clutching his wife's trembling hand, could feel the panic of his children bleeding into his own heartbeat. Every street looked the same, every turn only led them deeper into the city's maze, and the more they ran, the more it felt as if the streets themselves bent to keep them inside. The boy cried out that he had seen the car, but when they reached the corner, only a row of dark storefronts stood there, hollow and lifeless. The mother whispered a prayer under her breath, her words breaking as the sound of doors opening echoed again, hundreds of them, slamming wide in unison, and with them, those faceless figures stepping onto the street, their heads tilted unnaturally, watching. The daughter sobbed that they wanted them to stay, and for the first time, the father felt that maybe his child was right. The shadows did not rush. They moved with patience, spreading across every escape, as though the family was already theirs. The father pulled them into a narrow alley, thinking the walls might shield them, but as soon as they entered, the bricks shifted, closing like jaws. The alley stretched, twisting longer and longer, and when they looked back, the entrance was gone. The little boy screamed that the city was alive. And in a way, he was right, the city was breathing, pulsing, and waiting. The family stumbled forward until they reached a courtyard where a fountain stood, but instead of water, black mist spilled from it, curling upward like fingers. The figures surrounded them there, their shadows merging with the mist, forming shapes that tried to whisper. At first the whispers sounded like wind, but soon the words became clearer, stay. Stay with us. Forever. The mother covered her children's ears, but it was too late, the voices were in their heads, sinking into their thoughts. The daughter clutched her father and cried that she could hear them calling her name. The boy pointed at the fountain and shouted that their faces were in the mist, and when they looked, they saw their own reflections twisting, stretching, becoming shadow versions of themselves, smiling cruelly. The father roared that they would never stay, dragging his family through the courtyard. The shadows parted just enough to let them run, as though herding them like prey. They reached another street, and there, just ahead, was their car. Relief surged like lightning, and they sprinted toward it, fumbling with the keys. But when the father opened the door, the inside wasn't leather seats or steering wheels, it was a cavern of endless blackness. From within, countless arms reached out, pulling, clawing, whispering. The boy cried out, the girl screamed, and the mother dragged them back as the father slammed the door shut. The car dissolved before their eyes, melting into the street, leaving nothing but shadow dripping into the cracks. The city laughed, not with voices, but with the sound of every window slamming shut at once, echoing like thunder. Exhausted, terrified, and hopeless, the family collapsed against the cold wall of a building. The father whispered that there had to be a way out. That cities had roads, highways, something that led beyond the edge. The mother nodded through her tears and told him they must keep moving until they found it. They rose again, broken but determined, and the shadows followed silently, closer now, brushing against their skin with every step. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached a massive gate at the edge of the city, towering higher than any building they had seen. Relief filled them again, it was the way out. The children begged to be let through, and the father pushed against the gates with all his strength. The gates groaned, opened slightly, and beyond them was nothing, no road, no land, only a vast, empty void stretching forever. The daughter screamed that there was nowhere to go. The mother begged him to close it. And as the shadows closed in, whispering louder now, the family realized the truth. This city had no exit. It was not a place they had stumbled into by accident. It was a trap, a prison, a realm between life and death. They were not guests. They were chosen. The shadows reached out, wrapping around them like chains, pulling them back into the streets, into the houses, into the windows. The last sound the world outside would have heard was their screams fading into silence, swallowed by the city. And when the clock struck 3 again, the windows opened once more, and from one of them, for new shadowed figures stepped into the night, faces gone, replaced only with darkness, joining the others. The city waited, patient and endless, for the next travelers to arrive.